Have you ever watched your world crumble, slowly, silently, and without warning? Not in a way others could see, but in those private places where your hopes once lived. You carried the pain in silence. You smiled while breaking. You kept your voice steady while your soul trembled. And the ones who hurt you, the ones who planted those thorns in your path, they walked away untouched, didn't they? As if your suffering was a small price to pay for their ego, their satisfaction, or their entertainment. But here's what most people don't understand about God's justice. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And sometimes when God begins his work, he doesn't send thunder. He sends silence. There's something haunting about a collapse that happens without noise. When you fell, no one heard the shatter but you. But rest assured, God did. When you lay awake at night, trying to figure out why they betrayed you, why they left you in pieces, why they acted like your pain didn't matter, God was listening. While you tried to keep it all together, smiling in the daylight and drowning in the dark, God was preparing a response, and not just any response, a divine reversal. Because the same silence they left you in, God will use to surround their own downfall. Not out of revenge, but to teach. Not to break them out of cruelty, but to humble them into truth. What they mocked in you, they will mourn in themselves. The tears they ignored in your eyes will soon be mirrored in their own reflection. This is the great mystery. Why doesn't God strike them down loudly in front of all? Why doesn't he make their suffering visible like yours was hidden? Because what happens in silence stays deeper. Their collapse, like yours, will happen behind closed doors. In the same quiet where you used to beg for peace, they will now beg for relief, and no one will hear them, except God. There is a justice that is louder than noise. It is the quiet disassembling of a person's pride. It is the soft unraveling of their comfort. It is the slow decay of their false confidence. It is not dramatic, it is devastating. And it always begins the moment they think they've escaped it. Do not think God has forgotten what they did to you. He remembers the hour they chose to hurt you. He remembers how they blamed you while being the ones who harmed you. He remembers the lies they told, the trust they broke, and the pain they caused without apology. He took notes, not to punish immediately, but to prepare the lesson. And here's what's remarkable. You won't have to watch it to feel healed, because by the time their world collapses, yours will be rising. God doesn't destroy people for you to celebrate. He lets them collapse so you can witness how his justice works without bitterness. You won't even need to say, "I told you so." The silence will say it for you. So hold your peace. Trust the silence. Let them think they won. Let them brag, lie, and walk confidently in the wrong. Their collapse is already scheduled, and when it comes, it will come without warning and without sound, just as yours did. But this time, it won't be you on the ground, it will be them, asking the same questions you once did, praying the prayers you once whispered. Now let's walk through how this quiet justice unfolds, so you can recognize it not with vengeance in your heart, but with peace in your spirit. They thought silence meant escape, but God was letting the rope extend. The most dangerous illusion the wrongdoer ever believes is that silence equals safety. When someone harms you and heaven doesn't strike them down immediately, they mistake that delay for divine approval. They say to themselves, "Nothing happened, I'm fine." They go on with their lives, believing they've escaped the weight of what they've done. They wear their pride like armor and speak of your pain as if it's exaggerated or irrelevant. And because you didn't fight back, because you stayed silent, they assumed you were defeated. But they didn't realize that God's silence isn't absence, it's observation. When God allows someone to walk freely after hurting you, it isn't because he agrees with them. It's because he's allowing them to go deeper into the pit they're digging for themselves. Like a rope extended, it looks like freedom, but it's only a delay before the tension snaps. God's justice does not always arrive in the storm. Sometimes it arrives in a gentle unraveling, a slow collapse that begins from within, and that collapse often starts the moment they believe they've succeeded in escaping. You see, when they betrayed your trust, lied to your face, or used your kindness against you, they weren't just hurting you. They were laying down the foundation of their own undoing. But because there was no immediate thunder, no flash of divine correction, they believed they had won. They thought your silence was surrender, your kindness was weakness, your prayers were meaningless. But your silence was sacred. You weren't plotting revenge, you were handing your hurt to God, and he was listening. The rope they were given was never for running free, it was for proving who they really are. And every step they took without remorse, every moment they mocked your pain or brushed it aside, added another thread to that rope. God isn't in a hurry to punish, he waits. He allows them to reveal the full weight of their character. He lets them speak boldly while the heavens remain still, because when the moment of reckoning comes, it will not be shallow or short-lived. It will reach the depth of every action, every intention, and every silent cruelty they inflicted. So when they thought they had escaped justice because nothing immediate happened, they failed to see that they were simply being watched, not for your sake only, but for theirs too. So that when the collapse comes, there will be no excuses left. They will not be able to say, "I didn't know," because the rope was there, extended long enough to reveal that they chose their behavior again and again, even in silence. God does not forget. He does not sleep. He does not ignore the tears of the righteous, nor turn away from injustice. He lets the rope extend, not to let them run, but to let them fall by the same length they assumed was their protection. And when it tightens, it won't be loud. It will be quiet, like your own collapse once was. Only this time they won't have someone like you to help them back up. When they slept peacefully, God recorded the nights you wept alone. There is a kind of pain that can't be measured by words, a kind of sorrow that only shows itself when the world is fast asleep. You remember those nights, don't you? When the lights were off and the ache in your chest grew louder than your thoughts. You cried, not for attention, not for pity, but because the weight of what they did to you was too much to carry in silence. And still, you did. They went on with their lives, laughing, sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the chaos they left behind in your soul. While you were grieving, they were celebrating. While you questioned your worth, they remained confident in their cruelty. But heaven wasn't asleep. God was not blind to what happened behind closed doors. He saw the tremble in your hands. He heard the questions you asked in the dark. Why me? Why would they do this? Did I deserve this pain? And though he may not have answered immediately, he wrote it all down. Every tear, every sigh, every lonely prayer. God does not forget the nights the broken weep. He does not overlook the mourning heart simply because it is quiet. In fact, it is the quiet ones he listens to most deeply. While they slept peacefully, wrapped in the illusion that nothing would ever touch them, God was taking notes, not out of vengeance, but out of righteousness. Because there comes a time when the balance must be restored, not by your hands, but by his. The ones who caused the pain never imagined that the same comfort they abused would be taken from them. They never thought their laughter would be silenced. They never thought their hearts would one day beat to the same rhythm of fear and regret they once placed on you. But it comes. It always does. You didn't beg for karma. You didn't ask for revenge. All you did was survive. But in doing so, you gave God all the room he needed to work. And his justice isn't petty. It's perfect. The ones who hurt you in peace will be broken in silence. The same nights they used to sleep without guilt will become their sleepless hours of reflection, and they will remember the one they hurt. They will remember you. God is patient, but he is also just. The nights you thought no one saw you, he saw you. The days you went through life pretending everything was fine while screaming on the inside, he was there. And now, the nights are shifting. The ones who once slept peacefully will begin to feel what you felt. The same pillow that once held their head will now hold their regret. The same bed that once gave them comfort will now echo with the memory of what they did. And it won't be your voice haunting them, it will be their own. Their mockery will become their mirror, and they will see what they've done. Mockery is the weapon of those who feel no accountability. It's easy to laugh at someone when you believe they hold no power. It's easy to scoff, to dismiss, to ridicule the one you secretly fear you've wronged because it makes you feel untouchable. That's what they did to you. They mocked your sensitivity, your loyalty, your faithfulness. They laughed behind closed doors, rolled their eyes when your back was turned, and made jokes of your pain, believing that if they minimized it, they could erase it. But mockery does not erase truth. It only postpones the recognition of it. And what they laughed at, they will one day live. Because God, in his quiet brilliance, turns mockery into mirrors. He does not need to punish with fire when reflection alone can unravel a person. The very things they scorned you for will rise in their own lives, not as symbols of pride, but as cracks in their character. That's how divine justice works. It does not storm into the room with noise and wrath. It simply hands a person a mirror and asks them to look. And when that mirror arrives, they will see it all, the cruelty, the selfishness, the smug words spoken in arrogance, and they will no longer laugh. The irony is painful and beautiful all at once. The one who mocked your pain will meet that pain in a form they never imagined, not because you wished for it, but because truth has a way of circling back. There will come a day when they sit in silence, and their mind replays every word they used against you. The labels, the sarcasm, the condescension. They'll echo in their ears, but this time with clarity. And that mirror will not lie. It will show them not the version of themselves they built through ego, but the version shaped by what they did to others. It will be uncomfortable. It will be unbearable, but it will be deserved. They may try to look away. They may distract themselves, surround themselves with noise and false validation, but mirrors follow you. Even in the dark, you can feel their presence, especially when the light begins to fade from your own life. That's when God places it in front of them, when the world around them begins to shrink, when their friends fall silent, when their hearts grow restless. That's when they finally have to face what they've done. And it won't be through your words, it will be through their own. God doesn't need to raise your voice. He doesn't need you to fight your case. He simply lets the passage of time soften the ground beneath their feet. He allows the very traits they once praised in themselves to show their true shape. What they once thought was wit will be revealed as cruelty. What they believed was boldness will show itself as arrogance. And their mockery, once loud and confident, will now be the whisper of guilt they cannot silence. They will not forget you, not because you chased them, but because every time they look at their own life, they will see the shadow of what they did to you. Their mockery becomes their mirror, and no one can escape what they see in their own reflection. The collapse comes without announcement, just as your breaking did. There was no parade when your heart shattered, no audience to witness the moment your spirit broke, no camera to capture the weight you carried in secret. The collapse of your world happened without noise. It was silent, hidden, and because it was silent, they assumed it wasn't real. They believed that if your pain didn't make a sound, it didn't exist. But the deepest wounds never scream. They settle quietly into the soul. They change you from the inside. And that's where your breaking began, in the unseen places. And now, in the mysterious justice of heaven, their own collapse will follow the same quiet path. There will be no announcement, no warning, no grand signal to alert them that their time has come. It will creep in like nightfall, slow, subtle, and irreversible. The same way you felt the weight of the world pressing in on you, they will now feel the atmosphere shift around them. But they won't recognize it at first. That's how divine justice works. It mimics the very silence they once ignored. It begins subtly, a missed opportunity, a restless night, a conversation that leaves them more empty than comforted, and then slowly, like a house settling on a cracked foundation, their world will begin to tilt. At first, they'll try to brush it off. They'll say it's just stress, or things will get better. But the cracks will grow. And because there's no one around them to blame, they will be forced to look inward. That is where the discomfort grows. The confrontation of self, the weight of the conscience. They will start to feel what they never thought they would, the quiet grief of someone who knows something is wrong, but can't quite name it. It's the same grief you once carried, and now it has returned, not to you, but to them. The collapse will touch the things they once took for granted, the relationships they held above you, the comfort they prioritized over your well-being, the confidence they used to crush your spirit. All of it will slowly lose shape, not because you wished it upon them, but because everything built on the backs of others eventually caves in. God allows the collapse to mirror the very damage they denied, and like yours, it will not be public, it will not be loud, but it will be real. And just like your silence once held the heaviest weight, theirs now will echo with regret. They won't post it, they won't talk about it, but they'll carry it. The difference is, you carried your silence with strength. They will carry theirs with shame. And when they ask, why is everything falling apart? They remember a time they watched you fall and didn't care. That moment will return, not as punishment, but as a painful reminder that silence is not the absence of justice. Sometimes it is the very language justice speaks in. What they bragged about will break them because it was built on injustice. There is a strange kind of confidence that comes when people believe they've gotten away with wrongdoing. They don't just walk away from the mess they created, they boast about it. They wear their betrayal like a badge. They parade their choices, their gains, their successes as if none of it was tainted, and they make sure the world sees it. The car, the relationship, the money, the attention, whatever it is they used your suffering to obtain becomes their trophy. But here's the truth no one likes to admit. Trophies built on injustice rust from the inside out. They may not have told the world they stepped on your heart to climb higher, but God knows. They may have painted the story to make themselves the victim, but heaven does not listen to lies. And the very things they bragged about will soon become the same things that haunt them. Why? Because anything gained by hurting someone else carries the curse of that cruelty. It may not show up in the beginning. In fact, it usually comes wrapped in blessings. But over time, the cracks begin to show. You watched them post their happiness, flaunt their peace, enjoy what looked like reward, and you wondered if God even noticed. You stayed quiet. You didn't wish them harm, but you also couldn't help but ask, how can they smile like that when they caused so much pain? And the answer is simple. They were smiling in ignorance. But God was never ignorant of how they got there. He allowed them to enjoy it, not because they deserved it, but because the higher the climb without foundation, the harder the fall. Those who build their lives on injustice can't see the fault lines beneath them, but God sees, and He waits. Because when the thing they brag about begins to fall apart, it won't just shake them, it will expose them. The relationship that was built by betrayal will become the battlefield of their own character. The money they earned through manipulation will begin to slip through their fingers. The comfort they enjoyed while you suffered will start to rot from within, not because God is cruel, but because He is just. He will not let what was taken unjustly stand forever. And here's the beauty of His justice. You won't have to lift a finger. The same mouth that used to boast will go silent. The same pride that once walked tall will begin to stumble. And they won't be able to explain it. They'll say, I don't know what happened. Everything was going so well. But you will know. You'll remember the silence. You'll remember the sleepless nights. And you'll know that God doesn't forget the foundation of anything, even if people do. Their collapse won't be because you cursed them. It will be because they cursed themselves when they stepped on what was sacred. And your pain, the one they mocked, will become the very shadow over everything they once held high. The world won't see it immediately, but they will feel it deeply. And when they look back, they will realize the moment they hurt you and called it strength was the same moment their blessings began to expire. What they bragged about will break them, not out of spite, but because justice always returns to the scene of the crime. They will seek you when life no longer speaks softly to them. When people hurt you and walk away untouched, they never expect to need you again. They assume that what they took from you will never be needed in return. They think their silence is final, their distance permanent, and their betrayal forgotten. But life has a way of turning tables that no man can predict, and one day, when the comfort they once lived in begins to disappear, they will feel the emptiness you once carried. That's when they begin to search for peace, and in that search they'll remember you. They may not remember your kindness in the moment they hurt you, but they will remember it when the world stops being kind to them. They may not have respected your patience or your heart back then, but they will crave those same qualities when they feel the coldness of their own choices. Life has a way of withdrawing warmth from the hearts that refuse to give it, and when it does, they won't seek the loud or the proud. They'll seek the one who gave them peace without asking for anything back. They'll seek you. But by then, everything will have changed. You will no longer be the person who waited for them to realize your worth. You will no longer be the one wondering if they will come back. You will have healed in the same silence they ignored. You will have grown in the very darkness they left you in, and that growth will have taken you somewhere they can't follow. Not because you blocked the door, but because they sealed it when they walked away. God allows this moment not as a twist of fate, but as a revelation. He lets them come back, not so you can be hurt again, but so they can face what they left behind. He lets them knock, not because He expects you to open, but because they need to remember what they once took for granted. They will try to speak gently. They will try to explain. But words spoken in regret sound different than words spoken in love, and you'll hear the difference. Life is not cruel for sending them back to you. It is just. Because only by returning to the place of their mistake can they begin to understand its cost. They will look into your eyes and see the strength they underestimated. They will notice the peace you now carry, a peace they didn't give and therefore can't take. And they will realize they never had power over you. They only had access. And once that access is gone, no amount of soft words can undo the damage they caused in silence. They will seek you not because they love you, but because life no longer speaks softly to them. And they'll crave the version of you that no longer exists. They'll want the open-hearted soul they once betrayed. But you'll have become someone new, someone whole, not bitter, not vengeful, just beyond reach. And that, in itself, is a form of justice greater than any revenge. God will let you rise in silence too, so you learn to let go without needing revenge. There is something sacred about rising in silence. No applause, no spotlight, just the quiet unfolding of a soul that refused to be destroyed. That's how your healing has come, not in grand displays, but in whispered moments of strength. The same silence in which you broke is now the silence in which you rise. Slowly, steadily, and without needing anyone to notice. The world often tells you that to prove your worth you must be loud, that to show your power you must make noise, but God teaches differently. He builds the strongest foundations in silence. He does not parade your pain, He transforms it. He doesn't make your enemies your footstool so you can mock them. He raises you in ways that make revenge irrelevant, because by the time they come looking, you won't need anything from them. Not their apology, not their regret, not their presence. You'll already be walking in the life they tried to steal from you. God allows this kind of rising for a reason, because if He lifted you in front of them, your heart might get caught in proving something. You might still need validation from the very ones who broke you. But when He raises you in silence, the transformation is pure. It isn't about them, it's about you. It's about becoming whole without needing to be seen. It's about reaching peace without needing a witness. And when you finally step into your blessing, you'll know it was never about proving them wrong. It was always about becoming who you were meant to be. And make no mistake, this kind of rise cannot be faked. It is felt. The ones who once dismissed you will feel the shift, not because you announce it, but because the energy of a healed soul changes everything around it. They will sense the distance, they will notice your peace, and it will disturb them. Not because you're being cruel, but because they finally see what they walked away from. And in that realization, they will feel the weight of what they threw away. You, on the other hand, will no longer be tethered to the past. Your prayers won't be laced with anger. Your thoughts won't be filled with what-ifs. You will have risen so gently, so powerfully, that even you will look back in awe. You will remember who you used to be, the version of you that cried in silence, that begged for understanding, that tried to hold together what others were tearing apart. And you will bless that version, not out of pity, but out of reverence, because that version didn't give up. That version carried the weight long enough for you to finally set it down. This is how God works. He doesn't just break your enemies, He rebuilds you, not to return to who you were, but to become someone new. And in this quiet resurrection, you gain something they never had: peace that isn't attached to people, joy that isn't dependent on their validation, freedom that isn't granted by them and therefore can't be taken away by them either. So rise in silence, not to prove a point, but to fulfill a promise. The one God whispered to your soul on the nights you thought He had forgotten you. He didn't forget. He was simply building the kind of strength that doesn't need to be seen to be real. And now, that strength is yours. So now you understand, the silence that once crushed you has become the silence that restores you. God has not only seen your pain, He has measured it. He has not only heard your cries, he has stored them like precious treasure. And he will not let the hurt you endured go unanswered. Those who tore you down in silence will watch their own world unravel just as quietly, not because you wished it, but because divine justice moves in patterns far deeper than revenge. And while they fall, you will rise, not with noise, not with bitterness, but with grace. The collapse they face is their mirror. The peace you carry is your reward. You are no longer the one breaking. You are the one being rebuilt. And that, dear soul, is how God settles the score. Not through destruction, but through resurrection. You were never forgotten. You were being prepared. And now, let them feel the silence they once ignored. Let them taste the collapse they never thought would come. And you, keep walking forward, quietly, strongly, freely.